Constitution Day of India, the Samvidhan Divas. It was on 26 January 1950 when it came into force, but it was adopted on 26 November 1949. So since then, this day is remembered and celebrated as Constitution Day of India. And as you all know, my colleague has already mentioned that we are honored to have several distinguished guests and panelists here. Honorable Raj Chauhanji, the Speaker of Legislative Assembly of British Columbia. Honorable Mayor Mike Hurley, I just see him walking in. Very warm welcome to you. And all the councillors from City of Burnaby. The President of Chetna Association is represented by Mr. Harmesh Chandra today because President is traveling. Mr. Bill Basra, President of Guru Ravidas Sabha. Professor Swaran Singh, who is one of the panelists here, he is a professor of international relations in JNU, but these days he is in UBC teaching a class of international relations on Asian affairs. We have amongst us one panelist, Mr. Lavleen Gill, and of course Jai Birdi, our old friend and General Secretary of Chetna Association of Canada. But as you all know, this is a very important day, but let me remind you, and it is a very solemn moment for all of us. This was the day on 26 November 2008 when Mumbai came under attack. So I would request all of you to rise and for a moment. And 2 Canadian citizens also lost their lives in this Mumbai terrorist attack. And apart from 140 Indian citizens, 26 citizens from 23 countries also lost their lives. So let's not forget this moment and the scourge of terrorism. So we'll observe a moment of silence for the victims of this terrorist attack. We have eminent panelists who will dwell upon the principles and values of Indian Constitution, but from my part, I would like to say that the forefathers of drafting committee of the Constitution led by Dr. Ambedkar gave us a very solid document which has stood the test of time, and it is the very heart and soul of the vibrant democracy in India. And the preamble, which gives the peak view of the Constitution, is the most important part of the Constitution, if I may say. I myself is a law student and have read the Indian Constitution n number of times while I was doing my LLB in Delhi University, and then I took law as a subject to write my civil services examination also. So I have gone through this document many times, and it always amazes me that our forefathers were so progressive and visionary that they gave us a document which is a living document, and it is the very heart and soul of our Indian democracy. I'll take a moment to all of you to take a copy of the preamble is laid in the table for each one of you to see. I'll just read out read out this preamble, and you will see that each word in this preamble has its own significance and has its own values and gives as I say, sets the whole context and all about the document. It says, "We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic." So in the initial constitution, the 2 words were not there, the secular and socialist word. It came in the 42nd Amendment, if I'm correct, Dr. Swaran, I think. And these 2 words were added. And this was the first time this preamble was amended, and it has not been amended. And the judicial process and judicial reviews have confirmed that preamble is the integral part of the Indian Constitution. So you see that sovereign, we have elected representatives, so that comes the sovereign word. I mean, we are not under monarchy anymore. Socialist is the way of form of government. Secular is state doesn't have any religion. Democracy, meaning people elect their government, and republic. and justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought and expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, as assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. So this constitution was given by the people of India to itself, and it is still relevant, and we being a people of 1.4 billion, a country of 1.4 billion people with 28 states and 8 union territories and provinces. So the constitution has held us together, and it is flexible in the sense that we have adopted over the course of time, we have made amendments so that it is more contemporary and dynamic. And as Prime Minister, while addressing on the occasion of Constitution, says that the youth is this Constitution is also reflect the aspiration of the youth of the country, and because we are a young country, large majority of our population is young, so we should try to promote the values and of the Constitution and constitutional policy and provisions among the youth, because they should know what sacrifices our freedom people who strived for our independence, our founding fathers of the Constituent Assembly did for bringing this Constitution and giving Constitution to India. And it has all aspects: equality for every faith, equality among sexes, whether men or women, and women also played a key role in the formation of the Constitution. I think, if I may correct, I think Birdiji will elaborate further. 15 ladies were also part of the Constituent Assembly, and there were several debates, and there were issues around social engineering, women and empowerment, freedom of expression, faith, worship, preserving one's culture. So everything is imbibed, including directive principle of state policy, which directs the state what policy they should undertake to serve their people. And the whole governance structure, executive, judiciary, parliament, the distribution of power, everything, in fact, bureaucracy also, like us, we also have safeguards inbuilt in the Constitution. So this is, as I said, very big document, and our forefathers adopted the good provisions from all around the world, including the federal structure, if I recall correctly, from the Canadian Constitution. And so I'll stop here and say once again, thank you everyone who have found time to join us for this celebration. And I especially like to place on record my appreciation for Chetna Association and also Guru Ravidas Sabha, as well as Burnaby City Council and Honorable Raj Chauhan, who represents Burnaby in the Legislative Assembly of BC, and all my colleagues and all the distinguished ladies and gentlemen for coming here today to celebrate with us and reflect on the various aspects of Indian Constitution. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great honor for me to stand in front of you celebrating a milestone, and not only for India, for in the entire world. When the Constitution of India was adopted on November 26, 1950, it created that pillar of democracy where people can rely on and take guidance from. The committee who wrote that Constitution, led by Dr. Ambedkar, I can't even imagine the work they did and the kind of consultation or the insight that they had to make sure that that document becomes one of the best constitutions ever written for any country anywhere in the world. Sometimes constitutions are written as such, it becomes a mere words. But this is a functional document which stands for every single clause in that Constitution, which stands for the rights of people, for democracy, for liberty, for secularism, and for justice. So that's what we are celebrating today. I want to say on behalf of the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia and our Premier David Eby, congratulations to all Indians and all Indian diaspora anywhere in the world. I also want to say thank you to Shri Guru Ravidas Sabha and Chetna Association for organizing this event. If we, it's so fundamentally important that when we have something like Indian Constitution in our hand, it's our responsibility to celebrate not only amongst ourselves, but also to take it to the next generation and make sure they understand that. That's what we stand for. And I, again, not saying much because we are going to be listening more from the panelists in detail about it. I want to say to His Excellency Manishi for his words and his job and his staff, each and every one of them, the work they do in British Columbia. We really admire you, sir, and thank you so much for all your work. And also to my wonderful friend and colleague, Mayor Hurley, for their job, and all the councillors, job that you're doing representing British Columbians, especially here in Burnaby. So thank you very much. Let's enjoy, and congratulations.
Good morning, everyone, and it's my pleasure to be here. I just want to acknowledge, first of all, that we are in the unceded traditional territories of the Hunkaminam Squamish-speaking people, and to give appreciation for the opportunity to celebrate on this territory. I was a few minutes late here because I was at another function with MP Peter Julian, so I wanted Peter sent greetings on his behalf, and I wanted to mention that Peter has a stacked day, so unable to make it here today, but he wanted to send greetings, so I'll bring that on his behalf. You know, the Constitution of India, when I look at the words, and I think the world has so much to learn from this Constitution and how it was put together. But not only do we have so much to learn, we have so much to act upon. Words are one thing, but acting upon these words are another thing. And I just want to look at the liberty portion of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. And that should be guaranteed everywhere in the world. And it's all of our obligations, I believe, to keep promoting those values and living those values. And, I can go on. It's an amazing document that was put together, obviously, by many academics and many, many, many people who put a lot of thought. So I'm just so pleased to be here and to celebrate this Constitution with you all today, and to thank the executive here, Bill and his executive, for inviting me to be part of this today. And so on behalf of the City of Burnaby, have a wonderful day, and I look forward to the panels, and thank you once again for having us here. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Raj Chauhanji, Speaker of BC Legislature. During my visit to UVic, I had a chance to visit the House and see the august tradition that British Columbia has had in carrying on its own legislative affairs. Mayor Mike Hurley, to my old friend, Ambassador Manish, and of course Sanjay Malhotra, Mr. Chandar, Mr. Basra, Mr. Jasveer Gill, members of Chetna Association, and members of Guru Ramdas Sabha. Thank you for making me part of today's gathering. I want to spend my time basically focusing on why it is that Indian diaspora world over, or indeed the entire world, should be celebrating India's National Constitution Day, which of course is a great day for all Indian citizens. Many of you in the room are lawyers, and we all understand that from conventional law to law, the effort is to create mechanisms to protect, carry forward, transmit to future generations what are the dearest values that we hold. the most precious things that all of us have are values. And when you talk of not just law, but the fundamental law, the basic law, which is how Constitution is often defined, this represents the soul of a society, soul of a nation in that sense. And when we are talking of a society or a nation which is millenniums of long history, soon to be the largest nation on the planet. Indeed, when the constitutional culture was evolving in that part of the world, India was not today's India. It also had the current Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar as part of that large entity which was developing this constitution, culture of constitution, how to guide their own destiny in future. So one can understand, as was mentioned by Honorable Raj Chauhan, the daunting task that the Constitution Drafting Committee must have had, how to calibrate that soul of a nation which has thousands of years of history, continuing civilization, large society, enormous cultural diversity. And therefore, I think the preamble of Indian Constitution underlines all the basic values that holds India's soul together. And I think that makes very clearly the first important point, which is different when it comes to Indian Constitution, the longest constitution humankind has ever produced. Approximately about 150,000 words in English text. The smallest constitution is, of course, of Monaco, about 3,814 words. So you needed that kind of largest constitution to carry forward the basic values, the soul of a nation. Second reason that makes this a global document is also because this is a continuing constitution for last 73 years to be precise. Many other nations have seen many constitutions over a period of time. Some of the powerful nations, Germany has seen 14 constitutions, France 13, China 8, Russia, Soviet Union 7, Yugoslavia 6, Canada 2. It is also the third point that makes it very distinct, that this is, in India we call it Ek Bidhan, Ek Nishan. This is only one constitution for the entire 1.4 billion people. Easy example to understand is how every province in Canada has a constitution of itself. In India right now, there is no province that has its own constitution. It's just one constitution. Fourth point is the dynamism of that constitution. It's a very complex process of making amendments, but 105 amendments already achieved by national legislature to ensure that the constitution continues to be contemporaneous, relevant, as was mentioned by Ambassador Manish, to showcase the aspirations of youth of India. Now, briefly, I want to also share with you how not only Indian Constitution is a global document, but how India contributed to several other constitutional traditions. And I'm not talking of various luminaries of India who, because of their being celebrated lawyers, have actually been advisors in making constitutions of many other countries. I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to how India as a nation contributed to the evolution of constitutional culture in other nations. British, as we say, were an imperial power that never saw the sun setting. It was a real global power. Had a first hit when 13 American colonies decided to have their own revolutionary war. And British saw that as a great loss. And the immediate next focus was now in South Asia, where I mentioned the current India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar were British India at that time. But even British India at that time saw the first war of independence in 1857. Now, a second hit of that kind a revolutionary war in American colonies, 1770s and 1780s, then 1857, First Independence War of India, shook that imperial power. That made Great Britain or United Kingdom a very different imperial power compared to other European imperial powers. They devised an interesting strategy with two motives. One is called divide and rule. I will not talk of that, that sometimes gets into controversial turf. But other one of piecemeal transfer of power to all their colonies to ensure that they can continue to control them for much longer than if they were only using the brute force that they tried in case of American colonies and in case of until East India Company was in control in India. So the first change was the Government of India Act of 1858. Then, of course, likewise, similar acts came in 1909, 1919, 1935. But remember, 10 years after that first war of independence of India, you had your first constitution for Canada, 1867, where several of these territories were united together, and now the new narrative from great imperial Britain was that elected representatives were now enacting laws for these colonies and gradually transferring and empowering those nations, societies over a period of time. Maybe it was relatively easier for European settlers in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, to see those people sitting in British Parliament as their representatives. But indigenous native Indians constantly refused to accept those as constitution and constantly demanded that indigenous Indian native representatives should be writing their own constitution. So all of these were treated as imperial acts. They inspired creation of constitution, but they were never treated as constitution. Gandhi was on the lead of this. In fact, in 1928, a committee was set up under Motilal Nehru to devise a report. How will India create its own constitution? But the other element I mentioned, divide and rule, ensured that the draft was never adopted thanks to Muslim League. So that is how India contributed. And when India adopted its constitution, it picked up some elements of Canadian federalism, some elements of American federalism, some elements of British unitary system. So we have a quasi-federal system in India, which ensures diversity, but we call it unity in diversity. So that dynamism of adopting from other nations, but also being a country that influenced discourses in other nations, continues till date. And my last 1 minute I will use by saying how today, there's a famous constitutional lawyer in India, Upendra Bakshi. He talks of dean of your school, sir, when possibly you were a student there. He talks of how some of the constitution and India constitution, and that's my last example that makes it so distinct global document, has moved away from colonial inheritance of liberal order to post-colonial focus on empowerment and emancipation of citizens who may not have knowledge, access, and sufficient resources to claim what should be their rights, how to go all the way to empower them, emancipate them. Supreme Court of India, for example, has sometime moved in some similar directions. For example, public PILs, public, I forget. Yes. Public interest litigation is something that shows how Supreme Court of India has interpreted constitution, which in some ways is seen very often, even sometimes criticized, as intervention into legislative spheres. Because judicial activism has very often focused into what we call social engineering. Indeed, not just criticized, legislature has also been inspired by what judicial activism has done in interpreting both the written part and unwritten part, which is conventions of constitution. Legislative activism by inspiration has also produced several acts in India, acts right to information, right to work, right to food, which are going way beyond the liberal order that we inherited from imperial experience. So in that sense, when it comes to interpreting some of these things, And there is a lot that is common because both Canada and India inherited a lot of constitutional culture from the same source, British imperial power. But in terms of post-colonial interventions, we have seen how India has moved in focusing on socio-economic empowerment of its citizens over a period of time. And one could go on. There are almost about 100 new missions that the Prime Minister has launched in the last 8 years, all focused on empowerment. By comparison, I quoted Upendra Bakshi. Let me also cite Andrew Pater, the former Attorney General of British Columbia. He says how Supreme Court of Canada here has continuously kept that liberal tradition, and therefore in interpreting constitution has often focused on underlining market-driven empowerment, which sometimes, as he says, contradicts issues of social justice, which are more important in case of Indian interpretation of constitution. So as we inherit and as we evolve, I think we have also shared a lot, but we have moved also in different directions. The meeting point is enormous multiculturalism on both sides, and that allows each side to respect the other's viewpoint. And I'll close by saying the best example of that again is the 9th November speech of Foreign Minister Melanie Joly to Monk School in University of Toronto. If you notice how much coverage that speech has on India, and please allow me to mention the shared concern about China, underlines the fact that Canada and India, as they begin to evolve much more global personality, they will see that their overlaps will bring them much closer together. And at core of that overlap and coming together will be their constitutions, which hold same basic values of human dignity, territorial integrity, fraternity. These are basic values of social justice and empowerment that both constitutions hold together. And my assumption is that we are already seeing India and Canada meeting increasingly coming closer in the Indo-Pacific region. And I think soon to be announced Indo-Pacific strategy of Australia will really bring that out, how these two nations and their politics and their polity and their constitution are going to be pillars of strength in bringing them together. Thank you very much, and thank you again to the Consulate General for all.
His Excellency, Consul General of India, Shri Manish Ji, Honorable Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, Mr. Raj Chauhan, Honorable Mayor, dignitaries of Shri Guru Ravidas Sabha and Chetna Association of Canada. Today, we have gathered to celebrate the Constitution Day of India, as has been said before. Today is the day of celebration, and it is also a day of contemplation. Today, we should contemplate about the lofty ideas laid down by the Constitution of India. We should think about it, that how can we make these ideas a part of our value system? How we can make justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity a part of our belief system? How we can direct our national life in the direction of these ideas? Today, my mandate is to speak about the fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy. Coming to the fundamental rights, the Constitution of India, as pointed out by Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar, has taken an individual as the unit of national life. So the fundamental rights, they are directed at the individual. Fundamental rights strive to holistically develop an individual to lead a dignified life in the Indian Republic. It also strives the part 3rd of the Constitution, the fundamental rights. They strive to protect the individual against any state transgression. So the fundamental rights, which include the right to life and liberty, the right to equality, and Article 17, which deserves a special mention, which abolished the inhuman practice of untouchability in the Republic of India right at the beginning of this Constitution, which was a great work done by the constitutional forefathers. So the fundamental rights, they strive to develop an individual to have a critical mind, to develop a scientific temper, using the rights of freedom of speech and expression. The fundamental rights are a shield against any state transgression. It has also been pointed out. The other part of the Constitution, the Part 4, which is the directive principles of state policy. So the Constitution has also created a modern state, a republic state in India. So the constitutional forefathers took upon themselves to direct that state, to guide that state into achieving certain socio-political goals which were envisaged by the constitutional forefathers, which was drafted under the able guidance of Baba Saheb Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, is taking forward the ideas given by Guru Ravidas in his philosophy when he vouched for social equality and food security and taking people out of poverty. Let's all become a part of this journey. Last but not the least, talking about the directive principles, I'll also like to point out that Article 51 of the Directive Principles of State Policy, they state that the Indian state shall strive to achieve peace and harmony in the international relations. India, in its 75 years of its existence, has done the same thing. So, in the recent, giving the recent example of the hostilities between Russia and Ukraine, India has very boldly pointed out that, as the Prime Minister said, that this is not the age for war. All the Indian diplomats in the world are fulfilling their duty under Article 51 of the Directive Principles of State Policy. They are ensuring peace and harmony in this world. Thank you so much.
Good morning, and Jai Bhim to all. Sanjay ji, thank you so much for helping us coordinate and organize this event. Your Excellency, Mr. Manish ji, Speaker, Mr. Chauhan ji, Your Worship, Mayor of Burnaby, Mike Hurley, and all of our distinguished guests. It's our honor to welcome you and to have this dialogue among you and among all of our friends. I'm really encouraged to see the gathering that we have here today. So I want to express my gratitude to all of you for taking your time and joining us. We have heard from Professor Swaran Singh ji, we have also heard from Advocate Gill ji in terms of their expert opinions, and their expert thoughts. Friends, I will speak more as a layperson, and I will share my observations as a layperson, not as an expert in any of these fields. Before I do that, let me bring my greetings. So on behalf of Chetna Association of Canada, it's my pleasure to extend greetings on the Constitution Day of India. Mr. Bill Basra, who is the president of Shri Guru Ravidas Sabha, he also asked me to convey greetings on his behalf as well as on behalf of the Sabha. Friends, happy Constitution Day to all of you from all of us. Some 73 years ago, on this day, the Constitution was adopted in India, as we have heard from His Excellency, Mr. Manish ji, and was also implemented on January 26, 1950. We have also heard how, over these past 73 years, the framework that this Constitution has provided, it has sustained democracy, right? And it has retained the core elements of the Constitution, which are unity, integrity, justice, equality, liberty, and fraternity for a nation with many cultural, linguistic, and religious diversity. I must say, as we have heard before, this was indeed a very daunting task to keep the heart and soul of all those individuals with diverse backgrounds. My thanks to the drafting committee and its chairperson, Babasaheb Dr. Ambedkar, for producing a document that kept the interests of a common man at the core of their heart when resolutions were being discussed and rightfully debated. Because I think it was those core debates and discussion which produced the kind of document that we need. It wasn't quickly rushed and pushed through. There was a lot of thought went behind it. In this spirit, I see and honor Babasaheb Dr. Ambedkar as a pioneer in social engineering. Babasaheb Dr. Ambedkar's passion for emancipation, political, social, and economic, comes out clearly when one reads articles such as Article 14 through 18, which are about equality. We have heard about Article 17 from Brother Leveline, which abolished untouchability. When we talk about equality and what it means for us as non-resident Indians, as part of the diaspora who are inspired by the philosophy and thinking behind the Constitution, it's also my pleasure that we approached about 3 years ago the city of Burnaby, and we highlighted what we're learning from the Constitution, which is about equality. And Canada is also a multicultural country. So it's a matter of joy and pride for us to have the city of Burnaby, now under the leadership of Mayor Mike Hurley. Burnaby was the first city outside of India to proclaim April 14th as the Equality Day. So this is a matter of joy for all of us, not only in India, but as Canadians. In terms of gender equality and other measures of social engineering, these and other articles have been tested and challenged many times since the Constitution was implemented. It's reassuring to learn that the spirit of democracy lived through the Constitution has survived these challenges. The reason why it has survived is because the Constitution has proven to be flexible, workable, and amendable to address emerging challenges and leverage new opportunities. One example which comes to my mind is about the newer and emerging challenges. It was about the transgender issues. In the mid-2015, around that time, when issues around transgenders were being debated in the public domain, the government of India was able to work within the constitutional framework and pass a new legislation in 2019. And the legislation was called the Transgender Person Protection of Right Act. Ability to leverage the Constitution even after 73 years since it was adopted and pass a legislation to address the emerging needs is perhaps another testimony to the far-sightedness of Babasaheb Dr. Ambedkar, as well as all other fathers and mothers and sisters of the Constitution. Perhaps this is another great reason why Babasaheb Dr. Ambedkar is rightfully so being known as and regarded as the father of India's Constitution and chief architect of the Constitution. Babasaheb Dr. Ambedkar's famous quote, "I measure the progress of a community by the degree of progress which women have achieved," is a classic benchmark that provides women the right to vote as soon as the Constitution was adopted in 1950. And as a result, we have seen women emerging as prime ministers, chief ministers, presidents, at the village level, mayors. So to me, those are the significant contributions of the Constitution. I appreciate, while we were talking about the positive and successes, I also wanted to acknowledge that there are many challenges. There will always be challenges because society is evolving. Concerns related to caste-based discriminations are continuing to surface in India, but also outside of India as diaspora is growing. But I'm also pleased to hear when these incidents happen, the local administration is able to act and react in a timely manner. And to me, that is also power of the Constitution. Observing or celebrating days such as Constitution Day give us the opportunity to reflect, rethink, and remind ourselves of the values fathers of the Constitution had in mind. Knowing and understanding these values will undoubtedly influence and shape our thinking to take actions that support unity, integrity, and inclusion. Friends, I'm thankful to Mr. Manishji, Consulate General of India, for collaborating with Chetna Association of Canada and Shri Guru Ravidas Sabha to host presentation on the Constitution and instigate our collective thinking. I'm also very grateful to many local academic institutions. UBC is one of our partners for hosting Dr. Ambedkar Memorial lectures. Media outlets, we have Sanja TV and many other friends who are working to increase awareness. Punjabi Media Association, I see our friends are here. And community organizations, Khalsa Diwan Society, Hindu Mandir, the Writers International Network. So what I wanted to say is that Constitution gives us the values to celebrate. It also gives us the mechanism to bring those values into action. And we can only move forward, take this caravan, as Baba Sahib Ambedkar have said, collectively. So in the end, I wanted to share my appreciation for all of us to be working together, and to Mr. Manishji and all of his team for creating this opportunity and forum to share our thoughts. Thank you. Jai Bhim.
We are speaking to the Consulate General of India, Vancouver. Mr. Manishji, very happy to see. It's a happy Constitution Day to you, sir.
Thank you very much, and to all the viewers, a very happy Constitution Day of India to all of you, and my greetings. And today we are here in Guru Ravidas Sabha, Gurudwara in Burnby, to celebrate the Constitution Day of India. And I'm very thankful to Mr. Raj Chauhan ji, Speaker of British Legislative Assembly, Mr. Mayor Mike Hurley, the members of Chetna Association, members of Guru Ravidas Sabha, and many diaspora people who have come here to celebrate Constitution Day with us, the Consulate General of India. And this is a day when we have to look into what our founding fathers gave us, this great document which is upholding the federal structure, the constitutional rights of India, and it is a very progressive document, and it is very important that the values of our constitution are told to the young people, and so this is our effort that we bring it to the people of Indian people in Canada. And of course today is also a very solemn day as we remember the victims of Mumbai terrorist attack in 2008, where 140 Indians and about 26 foreign nationals lost their lives, and including 2 Canadian nationals. So this is a day where we should pledge to destroy the scourge of terrorism from global arena, and we should work together. And I'm very happy that we have dwelt upon various aspects of Constitution, Indian Constitution, the Canadian Constitution, the similarities, the fundamental duties, directive principle, and how it empowers a common people of India. And let's hope the Constitution provides guiding principles to all citizens of India to do better in their lives. Thank you.
So I do know that there's a lot of people that want to speak with you because they're very happy about today. Could you tell me just a little bit about Article 51?
Article 51 is part of the directive principle of state policy, and it mandates the state, that is India, to spread strive to spread peace and harmony in the world. And that India is always a peaceful nation, has never waged war against any country or any neighbor, and has always strived for peaceful coexistence. And with the world in global disruption, our message of peace and harmony and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that world is one. That message is always there, and that is the guiding principle of our gurus, our teachers, our elders, our politicians, and we live by that. So let's hope that this day of when we celebrate Constitution Day, we remind of the people of the world that India has this great value of bringing peace and harmony to the world.
Very good, and a very Canadian value as well, so it's very good.
We, both India and Canada, are diverse society, multi-ethnic society. We have in our society people of different faiths, religion, and we all are together in this journey of peace and harmony and in this international order.
Thank you, Mr. Manishji.
Thank you very much.
We're talking to Speaker of the House, Mr. Raj Chauhanji. It is always a pleasure to speak to you. Happy Constitution Day.
Happy India's Constitutional Day to each and everyone and all the audiences who are listening to and watching this program. It's a very proud moment for all of us celebrating such a wonderful document, which is the foundation of democracy.
To have this document made so long ago, yet with such progressive thinking, speak to that if you would.
Yeah, no, that's what I always wondered, the thinking, the insight must have gone into when they drafted that document. It's amazing, like they thought about that 73 years ago or 75 years ago, actually, because it took 2 years to put it together. And so this document is still alive.
Amazing.
It's reflected those aspirations, the desires of public years to come, and it's still there.
I also found it remarkable that they talked about women actually being involved in this process. I was quite surprised by that.
There were 14 women who were part of that committee.
Amazing.
Yeah, at that time, because of Baba Ambedkar, he was always, he stood for equality and gender equality for sure. And he had lived through all those discrepancies and discrimination all his life. So for him, it was very important to have that representation on the committee.
Well, it's wonderful that this document actually encourages the empowerment of all people and equality. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's really great. I think people who are really thinking about having a real democracy must read this document. And now, as somebody said, it's good to have the document, but implement that.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the best.
Action.
Action.
Absolutely.
Action we have to do.
Thank you so much, and happy, Constitution Day to you as well.
Same to you. Thank you.
We're talking to Professor Swarnji of UBC. We just heard you speak very eloquently, so welcome, and also congratulations on the Constitution Day.
I think it's a day for all Indians and people of Indian origin around the world to celebrate, because Indian Constitution is not just a document to celebrate for Indian citizens, but I think for the entire world. In many ways, it provides examples of being a great functioning constitution, the longest one, the enduring and lasting for 73 years now, and focusing increasingly on improvising 105 amendments to ensure emancipation and empowerment of Indian citizens, especially in terms of providing them socio-economic empowerment. So it's a great day to remember the people who drafted that constitution and ensured that the enormous diversity of India and the great moral values of that ancient society are scripted into a document which has done a great deal of favor to India in staying as a largest democracy on the planet.
So, Professor Swarnji, our channel, we speak English, Hindi, Punjabi, all of the languages. And if you could, our viewers that are listening and want to hear some Hindi, if you could speak to them and give them one last message on this very auspicious day. Just right there.
ਸਾਂਝਾ ਟੀਵੀ ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇ ਸੰਵਿਧਾਨ ਦੇ ਦਿਵਸ ਪਰ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ, एंड इट्स ए ग्रेट सेंस ऑफ प्राइड। बड़ी गर्व की बात है हम सब लोगों के लिए जो भारतीय नागरिक हैं, भारतीय मूल के लोग पूरी दुनिया में हैं, और सांझा टीवी इस मौके पर शामिल हुआ और कवर कर रहा है इस इवेंट को। बहुत ज़्यादा धन्यवाद उनके लिए। बेस्ट विशेस फ्रॉम माय साइड।
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We're talking to lawyer Loveleen. We heard him speak. Such a great speech. I was really happy to hear all of the different points that the Constitution has. Maybe we didn't even know living in Canada that the Constitution was so thorough. And if you could elaborate on that.
Yes, as we are celebrating the Constitution Day of India today, as the Constitution of India presents very lofty ideas of equality, of social justice, of fraternity. That is very important. That is often ignored, the word fraternity. We should ensure in our communities that we grow together, that we live in a spirit of cooperation, we live in a spirit of harmony between different communities. This is very important in this era. So all these lofty ideas were given to us by the Indian Constitution and the constitutional forefathers.
To think that this was 73 years ago that they came up with such lofty ideas, as you say, that's very progressive thinking.
It is. It was indeed ahead of the times. Credit must be given to the architect of the Indian Constitution, Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar, who was very progressive. But the tragedy is that he has been only confined to be a Dalit icon, which is not the truth. He also spoke about women's rights, ensuring equality. It is a fact that he resigned from the very first cabinet on the issue of Indian women.
That's amazing because that's so progressive.
Yeah.
We're talking about women's empowerment today, but this is so many years ago and he was ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time indeed, and he did his PhD on Indian rupee. His field of study was economics. He did economic critique of those times. So Dr. Saheb has he was multifaceted, and he shouldn't be just confined to being a Dalit leader. He should be seen in his entirety of his thought.
Well, you speaking publicly like today, you're changing people's perception and making a new dialogue. So if there's one last message you want to give our viewers, maybe in Punjabi or Hindi, whatever message you want to give.
ਮੈਂ ਅੰਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿਊਅਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਮੈਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਰਵਿਦਾਸ ਸਭਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਖੜਾ। ਜੋ ਸੋਚ ਗੁਰੂ ਰਵਿਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਰੱਖੀ ਸੀ ਬੇਗਮਪੁਰਾ ਦੀ ਤੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਐਸਾ ਚਾਹੂੰ ਰਾਜ ਮੈਂ ਜਹਾਂ ਮਿਲੇ ਸਭਨ ਕੋ ਅੰਨ ਛੋਟ ਬੜੋ ਸਭ ਸਮ ਰਹੇ ਰਵਿਦਾਸ ਰਹੇ ਪ੍ਰਸੰਨ। ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਸੇ ਸਪਿਰਿਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਮਿਊਨਲ ਹਾਰਮਨੀ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਰਾਬਰੀ ਦਾ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਆ ਇਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ ਦਾ ਉਹ ਅੱਗੇ ਲਿਜਾਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਮੈਂਸੀਪੇਸ਼ਨ ਆਫ ਦ ਨੀਡੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ।
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Virdi of Chetna Association of Canada, we just heard you speak. Happy Constitution Day to you. You did a nice job, sir.
Thank you so much, Sonia ji. This was an honor and privilege for me to be here, celebrate the Constitution Day among friends.
You talked about things in the Constitution that would surprise some of our viewers, especially people that are born here. Such a progressive document, such an elaborate document.
It is indeed a very progressive. It's built with keeping the human interest in mind and keeping the interest of the common person in mind. And this is probably one of the reasons why the values in it can apply anywhere you are, whether you're in India or in Canada or anywhere in the world. So to me, this is a global document.
So Chetna Association of Canada, in collaboration with Shri Guru Ravidas Saiba, together, why this collaboration?
What I believe in is that if we're looking at social issues, no one person, no one organization can achieve the results. We have to work together. We all have a role in it. The more partnerships and more stronger collaborations we have, more effective we will be. And we will also be able to factor in different perspectives and come up with a stronger decision. Just as the Constitution was made, it was built with the learning that was taken from globally, right, as well as locally.
So I was just thinking similarly the message here and also your message and the Constitution message, all of it is in alignment. So
It certainly is. It certainly is. As one of the speakers, talked about Begumpura, right? Begumpura is about a common place where everyone, regardless of differences, can live in harmony, right? So that's the philosophy of Guru Ravidas Ji, right? And the philosophy and Constitution is also about unity, integrity, right? So the values are the same. Sometimes they get misinterpreted, right? So it's important for us to come together, have a dialogue, and realize that the values are the same, our goals are the same. Let's find a common pathways.
that's perfect. At the end of the day, it's inclusion, social justice inclusion.
It is inclusion, and when everyone is included, you have a stronger community, you have a stronger nation, you have stronger families.
Very well said. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Sonia, and happy Constitution Day to you and to your audience.
Thank you.